Greetings, exalted ones.
What's going on, guys? Wizzy Boy here, and I'm back with another Star Wars Battlefront 2 video, and it's going to be a hero guide, and I'm going to show you guys how to not suck with Chewbacca. Yes, Chewbacca, aka Chewie, aka Walking Carpet, aka Fuzzball, aka whatever else I missed. But before we get started, guys, remember to smash that like button to support my channel, and if you're new, think about subscribing because I love to hear your feedback and your comments in the comment section below. I usually break down these hero guides into separate parts and explain a little bit of it in detail. These will be broken up into sections as followed, like about their weapons, basic traits and movements, abilities, star cards, and my own personal strategies and tips. With the recent patch 1.2, Chewie has had a bit of a nerf, so I'll mention that later on in the video for the ones that I know. So anyway, guys, sit back, relax, and let's make some noise. The mighty Chewbacca is equipped with his trusty Bowcaster, and when charged with the R2 button on the PlayStation 4, it becomes an even more powerful bolt, capable of killing normal infantry in one shot. But the feature I love the most about this weapon is the ability to shoot a Boba Fett out of the sky, as seen in this video right here. It is so satisfying when you hit him, especially when he falls to his death. As you might be able to tell, I hate friggin' Boba Fett. But with the recent nerf to Chewie's Bowcaster, which got a nerf in damage from 25 damage per bolt to 21, it does do less damage, but it doesn't sound like much. But if you've played with Chewie before, it does make a massive difference, especially when you're trying to kill someone like Darth Vader, you know, who's a tank and it's not actually doing much damage as you thought it would. But that's just his Bowcaster and the weapons that he wields. Next up, let's chat about his base traits and movement. Chewie comes standard with 650 HP, which is low considering Chewie in Battlefront 2015 had 1500 health. Yes, 1500 health, but his bonus health star card, which I'll mention later on, can max out his health to about 800, which is more like it for Chewie. I think in the recent patch 1.2 they might have actually lowered that. I'm not 100% sure. You know, Chewie is fairly slow in speed, probably a bit slower than Lando and Leia, but not by much if you think about it. And unlike the 2015 version, Chewie has actually has a combat role this time around, which is good because I don't know. It's not the best combat role in the game. It's not like Lando's or anything like that, but it has saved my life plenty of times. And again, he's not as fast as Lando or Leia, but he is a lot faster than his counterpart in Battlefront 2015. So all in all, he's actually had a pretty massive improvement in this area of base traits and movements parts of the game. Let's talk abilities for Chewbacca. Chewie has some of the most direct abilities in the game, which are Shock Grenade, a Furious Bowcaster, and Slam. His first ability, Shock Grenades, is probably the most overused ability in the game in my opinion. Chewbacca throws a grenade which can be broken into a cluster of smaller missiles which electrocute enemies that they hit. Now this is Chewie's bread and butter, stunning enemies only to be facing a furious Bowcaster bolt. They can pretty much kill heroes like Iden and Boba Fett in 4 to 5 hits, which is absolutely amazing, which pretty much leads me into his next ability, Furious Bowcaster. With a mighty roar, Chewbacca overcharges his Bowcaster, enabling him to fire fully charged shots with no charge time at all. Chewie has just recently been nerfed in the recent patch. I think it's patch 1.2, so I'm not sure if this Bowcaster ability got nerfed, but I wouldn't be surprised, especially since it can, partially hurt saber users who are actually blocking too, which pretty much makes sense, I guess. So this ability is definitely a game changer in the right hands. Next up is Charge Slam. Chewbacca charges forward and slams his fist into the ground when re-triggered, dealing high damage and knocking enemies off their feet. This ability can be activated in the air, which is actually something that a lot of people overlook. It's pretty much a straightforward move, but because of his lack of speed, saber users usually can close the gap really quick on him, so that's pretty much where he struggles. But with this ability, if you hit the ground and they fall off their feet, you could run for your life and get the hell out of there. Now, I don't know how many times this ability has saved my life, and if you just remember what I just said, you can activate this in the air. So a tip for you guys is just to jump straight up and press it, because he'll do a bit of a jump, but you have to time it. So I'll talk more about this later. And then he just slams the ground, they all fall over, and you can either just shoot away or regroup with the other heroes in there. So his abilities are quite good. I know a lot of people consider him to be a bit of a, you know, more or less of a word, a cheapskate, and that's pretty harsh for Chewie. Like, there's not really much he can do, considering his speed, but I think his abilities are nice. I think that Chewie in any game, Galactic Assault or Heroes vs Villains, in the right hands, in the right situation, can dominate the battlefront at any way and any place and time. So anyway guys, those are his abilities covered. Now that we've covered his abilities, let's talk star cards, which is pretty much everyone else's here to look at. And I have two different builds that I use for Heroes vs Villains and Galactic Assault. Now for Heroes vs Villains, I usually go with bonus health, which is something both builds obviously have to have, and if you've got Chewbacca you need that bonus health. And then I go a multi-shock as well, also with slammed. Now obviously bonus health, Chewie has an increased at maximum health, which at legendary or epic it goes to 150, so that puts his health up a fair whack, which is pretty good. I think it ends up being about 800, which is what we are used to with Chewbacca being a bit tanky himself. Next up we have a multi-shock. The shock grenade splits into more parts, shocking a wider area. And at epic level it adds 4 extra grenades, which is brilliant, especially when you want to, in Heroes vs Villains, when there are people all trying to gang up on you and you want to try and get the hell out of there, or try and kill extra villains yourself and help your team out. Next up I usually use slammed. Charge slam deals bonus damage to enemies that are within half the radius of the blast. So pretty much you get, at epic level, you get an extra 50 damage, so that's massive, that is huge, especially when you're trying to get away or trying to save another hero at the same time. Now when it comes to a Galactic Assault, of course we've got the bonus health, but I actually switch up to Echoing Roar. Now you can use this for Heroes vs Villains if you want to as well. It's actually a pretty good ability, so every time Chewbacca defeats while Furious Bowcaster is active, it will extend its duration, and at epic level it's 40%, so you can almost, every time you kill someone, especially in Galactic Assault, and your Furious Bowcaster will almost kill normal infantry in one shot. So can you imagine if there were 2, 3, 4 people gathered up and you were hitting them and killing them with one shot, maybe two, your increased time will be 40%, so you can almost go on a massive kill streak, especially in Galactic Assault. And the last one is slammed. Especially if you're trying to clear a room, when you activate Chewie's slam ability, he actually runs. So if you want to try and quickly enter a room and clear it out, this is one of those abilities which is really good. And people who are in half the distance will actually get hurt. And at epic level that's 50, so you can almost take off a fair chunk of other troopers' health just by setting off this ability. But you know, there are other abilities. Since Furious Bowcaster got a bit of a nerf, I should say, from each bolt that comes out of his Bowcaster, you can actually use different abilities if you really wanted to, depending on what it was. You know, combining Furious Resilience with Echoing Roar can be good because, especially in Heroes vs Villains, which is probably what I would use it for, Chewbacca receives less damage from blasters while Furious Bowcaster is active. Now at epic level that's 20%, so you get 20% less damage from blasters. Good for Galactic Assault and Heroes vs Villains, because a lot of people actually use blaster wielding heroes in Heroes vs Villains, and everyone's a trooper in Galactic Assault. So having Furious Bowcaster coupled up with Echoing Roar, you can absolutely dominate if you really wanted to. Special mentions to shocked and vulnerable. Enemies that are hit by a shock grenade will be more vulnerable and all damage from shock duration. So pretty much if you hit them with this and they're shocked, and you hit them with Furious Bowcaster, you know, it can do some really good ones, real good damage. Wookiee Berserker I think is actually quite stupid, you know, don't really use that at all. Another thing you can do too, especially if you're trying to get away, you can actually use slammed as like a escaping ability, or, you know, clearing rooms. So charging frenzy is actually good for that, especially for Galactic Assault. Chewbacca receives less damage while using a charge slam, which is friggin' awesome, and at epic level is 30%. So a lot like Han's shoulder barge, which you can use as an escape or a way to clear the room. It increases the speed, so I think you guys can realize what I'm trying to say here. So if you can couple charging frenzy with slammed, you're doing more of a radius damage and taking less damage at the same time, which makes them a hell of a lot tanky. So I haven't actually unlocked this yet, but it's actually a pretty good thing to set up if you really wanted to. But that's pretty much it, guys. For star cards, those are the ones I use. So I'll just recap. In Heroes vs Villains, I'll go bonus health, multi-shock, and slammed. And when it comes to Galactic Assault, 9 times out of 10 I'll use bonus health, echoing roar, and slammed. Well, anyway, guys, it's probably what I would use for star cards. So hopefully this did help. Let's move on. So let's move on to my personal strategies and tips. If you can max out some of his hero cards in Heroes vs Villains, Chewbacca combined with his health boost and all of his star card boosts and all that kind of stuff, he can be quite a dominating force when it comes to Heroes vs Villains. But staying at range is always king for Chewie. Try like a supporting distance, maybe medium to long range, and don't get too aggressive with Chewie. He's more dominant at the medium range. I've seen so many players trying to get too aggressive with Chewie, and they just get absolutely dominated. Try throwing down a shock grenade and then switching immediately to Furious Bowcaster just to try and melt down the other heroes' lives. If you can get into this little technique, so to speak, you'll dominate in Heroes vs Villains. And when things start to get a bit too tight, when people start to get a little bit too close, you want to do Charge Slam and knock everyone off their feet, either to escape if you can, or regroup with the other fellow players. In Galactic Assault, I usually only use Chewie for close quarters combat. Using him out in the open, he can get picked off real easy, or the person you're playing against can just use the space around you just to dodge around you and all that kind of stuff. Because he is not very fast at all, using him in tight corridors and all that kind of stuff is king for Chewbacca, especially in Galactic Assault. But if you're wondering what places to use him, I usually use him in the second phase of Hoth or the second phase of Naboo when it's all inside and all that kind of stuff to dominate unsuspecting troopers. And on that note, for a pro tip, Chewie's Charge Slam can actually be used right in front of him. So what you want to do is, if you press the jump button and press the Charge Slam ability, he will jump straight up in the air and do it right down in front of him. So if somebody's attacking you, you want to jump, press Charge Slam, and just absolutely dominate these dudes. Or if you want to get away, you actually press the Charge Slam ability and he'll run for a certain distance and you have to trigger it again to do a jump. So it's a good way to get the hell out of there if you need to. Well, anyway guys, I think I might just leave it there. So if this did help, remember to smash the like button and support my channel. And if you're new, feel free to subscribe, because I'd love to hear your feedback and your comments in the comment section below. I am your host, Noisy Boy. Thanks for coming on by, and as always guys, stay noisy.
Now, at the end, do you understand?